Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're really diving into something that I think is going to resonate with a lot of you.
Yeah, definitely.
We are talking about Please Stop at the Red Light
Yes.
by Mbamba.
This is a good one.
And this is like a self-improvement, like
Uh,
philosophy kind of
yeah,
look at your everyday life kind of book.
absolutely.
Um, and I think one of the things that makes this book so interesting is just Mbamba himself.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy.
Like he's a taekwondo
Yeah.
athlete turned philosopher and educator.
Which I feel like you can feel all of those things.
Yeah.
His writing style and the way he kind of
Yeah.
explains things.
Like it's very grounded.
Yes, very down to earth.
But also like philosophical and heady in a way.
Absolutely. And I think one of the cool things is that the book it feels very accessible,
Yes.
even though it's talking about these bigger concepts.
Exactly. So one of the big things is this idea of like inevitable breaking points. He calls them IBPs.
Right.
And so I thought maybe we could start there. Like, what are those?
Okay, so imagine you're on a road trip
Okay.
and there are traffic lights along the way, right?
Yeah.
The traffic lights are basically like our experiences in life.
Okay.
And these IBPs that he talks about are the red lights. So it's like those moments where you have to stop.
You can't just like run the red light.
Well, you can, but it's not advisable.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, these are moments that really force you to kind of reevaluate like what you're doing and make a decision about how you're going to move forward.
So instead of just like reacting to things as they come up, you're saying we should be like more aware of these moments and then make a choice.
Yeah, it's about breaking those patterns, those like ruts that we get into and deciding like, okay, I'm going to choose a different path this time.
Okay, so for someone who's like, okay, I get it. I need to be more aware. How does that actually work? Like, what's an example of an IBP that people might experience?
So one example that he uses in the book is procrastination.
Okay.
And you know that feeling when you have a textbook?
Oh, yeah.
And you just can't seem to open it.
Staring at you.
Exactly. It's like this weight on your shoulder.
Like mocking you.
Yeah. And he talks about how we miss those early red lights, those early IBPs.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just about finally getting yourself to open the book and study. It's about noticing those earlier signals, like the book just sitting there on your desk.
Okay.
Or that feeling of like, I should really study.
That little voice in your head.
Yeah, those are the mini red lights that we often ignore.
Totally. And it's like those little choices kind of snowball, and then all of a sudden,
Just that.
you're like, well, I guess I'm not going
And then the deadline is looming.
Yes.
And you're freaking out.
Exactly. So then how do we get better at like recognizing these IBPs, like when they're small?
Yeah, so he introduces this tool called the urgency number.
The urgency number.
Oh, yeah, so basically you assign a number
Okay.
from -15 to +15
Okay.
to like your tasks or even your desires.
Okay, so it's like a ranking system
Kinda.
for how important something is
Exactly.
at that moment.
Yeah, like what do you want to do versus what do you know you should do?
Oh, that's good. Because it's not always like a have to. It's like a want to versus,
Right. It's about understanding your priorities in that moment.
oh, I like that.
So, for example, let's say you're in a parking lot and you see a parking spot open up
Oh, yeah.
at the same time as someone else.
Oh, it's the worst.
And you need to get a prescription for your sick relative,
Okay.
but the other person is just like running a quick errand.
Oh, see, I would just give him that one.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I guess that's the difference.
Exactly. And he talks about this like, even without numbers floating above our heads, we kind of do this naturally.
Yeah.
We weigh these competing needs.
We do.
But how often are we letting the less urgent thing win out because we haven't actually stopped to think about it?
That's so true. It's like we're on autopilot
Yeah.
and we're not really making a conscious decision.
Right. It's like we're just reacting
Yeah.
instead of responding thoughtfully.
Totally. And that kind of reminds me of another big idea from the book, this whole black belt mentality.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So we're not talking about like actual black belts here.
No, not literally. Although I'm sure some of our listeners are black belts.
Yeah, probably.
But it's more about taking those core principles from martial arts,
Okay.
like discipline, resilience, adaptability, and applying them to everyday situations.
It's more like an inner strength,
Exactly.
like a way of approaching challenges.
Yeah, think of it this way. A black belt doesn't just fall apart under pressure.
Right. They've trained for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've put in the hours. They know how to stay calm, assess the situation, and adjust their approach as needed.
And they've learned to be okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, discomfort is part of the process.
It's how you grow.
Exactly. And Mbamba talks about this idea of knowing your belt level for any given challenge.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Like sometimes you have to approach things with a white belt mentality,
Meaning,
being open to learning, making mistakes.
okay,
But other times you can draw on your experience and react with more confidence.
like a higher ranking belt.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's about recognizing where you are in the journey.
And giving yourself permission to not be an expert at everything.
Exactly. And speaking of learning,
Mm-hmm.
there's this great story in the book about Mbamba's father waking him up in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah, to watch martial arts on TV.
Yeah.
It was such a small thing,
It was.
but it said so much about their relationship.
And the power of observation.
Right. It wasn't about lectures or instructions.
Just being present, absorbing the knowledge.
Which, by the way, totally plays into your whole thing about quick but thorough learning.
Right. Sometimes just observing and reflecting can be more powerful than cramming information.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how do we take these kind of big ideas and actually apply them to our lives?
Well, Mbamba offers some really practical techniques.
Like,
Have you ever heard of prompting your environment?
prompting your environment, is that like motivational posters and stuff? It's not really motivational posters, is it?
No, not quite.
Okay, so what is it?
So prompting your environment, it's basically about using like visual cues around you.
Okay.
As little reminders to
Yeah.
kind of shift your mindset or
I see.
trigger an action that you want to take.
So like instead of having a motivational poster that says just do it, it's more like,
It's more personal.
oh, okay.
Yeah, like you're setting up these little nudges for yourself throughout your day.
So give me an example. Like what would be a prompting your environment thing?
Okay, so one example from the book,
Mm-hmm.
he talks about this person who struggles with anxiety.
Okay.
And they use a specific nail polish color
Okay.
as a reminder to like pause and take a breath.
Oh,
So it's like this discreet little signal
interesting.
that only they understand.
Right.
And it just reminds them like, okay, I need to take a moment for myself.
It's like a secret weapon
Right.
against those like overwhelming moments.
Yeah.
I like it. What else does he say?
Another example is someone who wanted to like read more. So they put a lectern on their desk.
Like a literal lecture?
Yeah. A little one.
Wow.
As like a visual reminder of
Yeah.
their goal.
Interesting.
So they created this like dedicated space for reading.
Oh, that's cool. So it's kind of like we talked about those speed bumps before.
Yes.
It's like a mental speed bump
Yeah, like a visual cue that just kind of brings you back to the present moment.
and reminds you, this is what I'm doing.
Exactly. It's about being intentional.
I like it. And the thing I like about it too is that it's something that you can really personalize.
Absolutely.
Like you could do anything,
Whatever works for you.
right? It could be an object. It could be a color.
A smell, a sound, anything.
Yeah. Like if you're trying to be more mindful about like drinking water, you could have like a special water bottle that you only use for that.
Yeah.
Or you can put like a sticky note on your computer
Mm.
to remind you to take breaks.
Yeah,
It's like you're sending a message
exactly.
to your future self.
It's like future me, don't forget to do this thing.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about being intentional and like taking control of your life.
Yeah, and the more we practice that awareness, the easier it becomes to make those conscious choices when we hit those IBPs.
Right, because then you're not just reacting.
Exactly. You're responding with intention.
I love that. So I guess as we're kind of coming to the end of our deep dive here into please stop at the red light,
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest takeaways that you hope our listeners are walking away with?
Well, first and foremost, those IBPs, they're everywhere.
Yes.
Once you start looking for them, you'll see them. Right? It's like you said, we hit them all the time, but we're
You're just not paying attention.
not aware of them.
So awareness is number one.
Okay.
And then cultivate that black belt mentality, you know?
Yes.
Face your challenges with that awareness, with resilience.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Exactly. Failure is just feedback.
I love that.
And then finally, those little things,
Yes.
like prompting your environment.
It make a big difference.
They really do.
Yeah.
It's about setting yourself up for success
It's not about being perfect. It's
and
about
progress.
progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And Bamba asks this great question at the end of the book.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He says, how conscious are we of that which we are not conscious of?
Wow, that's deep.
It is. And I think it's something for all of us to reflect on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there, what's one thing that you do subconsciously that maybe now you want to be a little bit more aware of?
Yeah, think about that.